Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we get started, and whilst we're setting up the slides, I've got a couple of questions to ask you. I'll start off with my first one. I will need a show of hands, okay? And it works better if everyone uses them, right? So a show of hands, next generation firewall. You've heard? Yes. Okay, that's good. All right, let me give you a little bit of an explanation on next generation firewall then for those who haven't. Next generation firewall is, if you like, the evolution. It's not the, like a 2.0 type version. And what it's meant to be is you look at the traffic that we see passing through the firewall, and we look further inside it, and we see, oh, that's really web traffic, or that's really an application. And a lot of people think that that technology is new. Okay, so let me bring you all back to the ground on that one. We've been delivering next generation firewall solutions since 2002. Okay, so they've been around a long time. There's a lot of buzz in the market about it, but we've been doing it a long time, a very strong history in providing next generation firewalling services. So things like antivirus, spam, and other solutions that sit on the firewall. That's next generation. Next question, and you need to use your hands again. People who use Facebook, come on, that's got to be everyone, right? Okay, everyone uses Facebook. Keep your hand up if you use it on your work PC. Half? Okay. It's no secret. Everyone uses it, and everyone's using it on their work PC. A lot of people talk about using next generation firewalling to find out what their users are doing, but it's very simple. You're using Facebook, all right? You're using Twitter. You're using non-business applications for some of it, like Facebook. You might be using Twitter for work-based reasons, but you're using those types of next generation applications, all right? Deploying security solutions to find that out is not really a good idea because everyone is already doing it. All right, so if we keep those two things in mind today, next generation firewalling is the evolution of firewalling, and it's been around a long time. And the second thing is that it's important to know that users on your network are already using these technologies, and then we need to decide how we're going to interact with that and where Juniper fits into the overall business now. Let me just talk about security, though. It's an incredibly important part of this business, okay? The business that I run here in Asia Pac and through you and our distribution partners as well. It represents globally around about $1 billion. So it's a significant piece of Juniper's overall revenues. It's pervasive across all of our technology bases that were announced there at the beginning. So whether we're talking about broad networking, whether we're talking about mobile device, remote access, firewalling, intrusion detection, security is pervasive across all of it. And it sits across all the domains where we focus. So whether we focus in the data center, campus and branch, edge, mobility, security is a very pervasive part of that. And people expect it to be there. All right? People expect their PC to get a virus. People don't expect their mobile phone to get one. All right? You expect it to be a phone. You don't expect it to get infected. You put data inside the data center and you expect it to be safe. You know, it takes a lot of work to get into this data center. You know, you open the door, key pass, thumbprint, eye scan, all of these things just to get in. You expect it to be safe. And it's the job of vendors like Juniper to make sure that those assets, as they're brought into data centers, so in particular Singapore has a bunch of them, that we make sure that we are secure and safe in bringing that intellectual property into that data center and keeping it there. And making sure that the application that you interact with and your customers interact with is surviving any type of event. So it has to be reliable service, secure service, good quality of service. All of those things enable you and your customers to maintain their customers and ensure customer satisfaction. So for us, we need to focus around that customer experience. It's very important that when you deliver a service that it is reliable, all right, that it is secure. The brand and reputation that is attached to delivering that application is incredibly important. If you're using a banking application, you assume that the people at the bank will look after your money, all right, or me, I've got to pay it back, right? So your money is involved, so you want them to look after it well. You want your identification to be well looked after. You don't want it to be shared with others. And you want to make sure that there's, everything's reliable and very safe, a good customer experience. And if you don't believe that you're going to get that, if the reputation of that institution fails, then you'll take your money and you'll put it somewhere else. So banks know that. It's very much, they've been doing security for hundreds of years, right? When they've just changed now from physical security to more IT security. But many organizations don't think this way. They think that the best thing they can do is provide an application and do it quickly. They don't think about the customer experience. They don't think about the reputational loss that could happen if they don't bring security in as part of the overall design. So customer experience is very important. The underlying premise, that is, for supporting all these types of technologies is platform independent. Now, I asked before who's using Facebook, who's using Twitter, and that's pretty much everyone. But I bet everyone in the room doesn't have the same mobile phone. All right? Everyone's got a different variant. And for us, we know that Samsung and Apple and all of those other companies are out there innovating, and we want to be able to attach ourselves to that innovation. We want to be able to deploy security on any device. So whether that's the television, whether it's a mobile phone, PC, whatever. It's important that we're very independent and that we can support these different types of operating systems and different physical devices, because Samsung and Apple, they spend billions of dollars investing in R&D every year, and as do we actually. But we want to make sure that we can leverage that to bring that really good customer experience across. And that's again, incredibly important. I'll talk about the cloud piece in the middle around security intelligence. I've been in the security game on and off, I guess, for about the last 10 years. And when I asked the question at the beginning around Facebook, I really meant that. People are so secretive about their security business. They're so secretive about what they do. You know what? There's no need to be. Everyone's using Facebook. Everyone's using these applications. Everyone's dealing with the same challenges, and yet we don't share that information. We don't share a lot of that information between vendors. We don't share it between partners and customers. Very well anyhow, a little bit, but not very well. And we certainly don't share it within our business. If you look at most businesses, they look at security as an event in a location. Firewall, attack, fixed. But what about firewall, attack? Maybe we should also fix the server, fix the application, fix all of these other things as well. And sharing that information is incredibly important. And back to my financial services example, if you're being attacked in one particular location, chances are you're going to be attacked in all of them or many of them. You want to make sure your security intelligence is shared between the devices that you're using to protect your network. And if you do that, you're much better protected than organizations that treat security as one particular event. And the final thing is around deploying security well. Big word for it up there, efficacy. But deploying security well. And it means I need to take my policy and my business rules and deploy that the same way over and over again. And if I continue to maintain that policy, it should automatically push to everywhere in my network. It should become very pervasive, and that delivers that ultimate customer experience. Just a little bit of the history lesson again. If you look at where we've been, security has started off a long time ago in that very low level, the firewalling space. We've been there forever, okay? Largely that hasn't changed. About 15 or so years ago, or 10 years ago, intrusion prevention came out. That's really what we scrub the name out and we call it next generation firewall. That's really where IPS came in. It's the ability to look further into the traffic, see inside it, and perform a business function. Okay, so they've been around a fair while. And like most things in this industry, when they get a little bit old, we just change the name, right? Like cloud computing, didn't we just used to call that outsourcing? And then before that, didn't we call that, you'd send the tape to IBM or some other processing place and they would process it on your behalf. Everything old is new again inside IT. And then if we go up a level, we look at other things that we need to do now that we believe are more important around next generation firewalling. It's not just looking at the traffic. It's about being more aggressive in your defensive position. How do I actively shun users away? How do I look at traffic and make a business decision in a more real-time and distributed way? How do I take the labor, the intelligence, and the people? I don't need to use them to add policies. How do I get the security systems to become adaptive and defend better? All of these things are incredibly important to us as we take the information from the data center and we deliver it out to the end user. The thing we're trying to protect is the intellectual property inside the data center. What happens out in the wild, it's not really something that we're going to focus on. We're focusing very much around the data inside the data center. And ultimately, if we do that, we'll deliver that great customer experience that we want and that we need to be able to deliver. Some stats, and I won't use these ones, I'll use some different ones. We commissioned an organization called Ponemon to do some research for us, and they went out and they talked to IT professionals. Okay, they did it on a global basis, about 4,700 people, including about 900 to 1,000 people here in Asia Pacific. These people had more than 10 years IT experience. Okay, so they're reasonably senior people. They're involved in large organizations, many of them in multinationals. And the underlying premise is more than half of those people surveyed believe that they are not prepared, or the organizations that they work for are not adequately prepared to defend against a web attack. I was amazed when I found that out. A web attack, it is the most commonly used thing you would use on a PC to gain information, a web browser. 60% of those people believe that they're not prepared. And if we look further into the Asia Pacific market, that trend is largely continues in many of these spaces. We do have some very specific things in Asia Pac that aren't the same as the United States. For example, there's a bunch of things going on with governments in this part of the world that's different to maybe what's going on inside the US. So we have to be very active about our security if we're going to adequately defend. And the stats up here back that up. Most crime and attacks are still largely financially motivated, and so 95% of all attacks are largely focused around stealing money. So there's lots at risk here, and even IT professionals believe that we are not well prepared, and the reasons for that I'll sort of scratch into a bit more now. Lots of organizations, and I was talking to an analyst this morning, they said they've done reputational-based identification in the past. And if you're familiar with email type reputation systems, it's very similar. And if you think of that analogy, we look at traffic and we look at particular web servers or email servers, and we looked at them and said, you're sending so much mail, you must be bad, and we won't let you send any more. And that's a good thing to do, because we're not just looking at the number of emails, we're looking into the content, we're looking at the links, etc. When we've done security, though, for firewalls and broader network traffic, we've never really done that. Okay? We've never really done reputational-based security. And by that I mean, we look at the traffic and then we decide actively, you're good, and we believe you're good, and we create an entry in a global database that says, you're good. Or we look at you and you go, you're bad, and we actively say you're bad. But we keep watching you so that if you are good and then go bad, we update that database. The important thing being, we're not just tracking what traditionally might be tracked, which is an IP address. All right, so if you're somewhat a technical person, IP address is used to communicate on the internet. The disappointing thing about it is there isn't one for each of us. Okay, when they planned it, they didn't have enough. So we end up sharing them. And if you're sitting behind a shared address and it gets blocked, then the good people and the bad people get blocked. Okay, so that's not ideal at all. What we need to be able to do is look further into the traffic. That further inspection inside the traffic will help determine whether that is good or whether it's bad. And this brings to life what we're terming the Spotlight database. The Spotlight database will enable us to bring to our customers via our partners a fingerprint of the devices. Okay, not people or IP addresses, devices. So Greg's iPad, Greg's laptop, each one of those will be unique inside the database, so that I can then look at that database and I can work out whether the device I'm using is good or the device I'm using is bad. And that's incredibly important as we look to secure the services as we consolidate them inside the data center. So it's an extension of what you might have seen in the past around IP-based reputation, but for us, IP is not the most important thing. We want the device, we want that fingerprint, and we want to be able to share that at a global level. Now, customers and partners, maybe they're not interested in sharing that information at a global level. Maybe they just want to protect their own assets. Absolutely fine as well. So if you're that bank again, or if you're that distributed customer that has branches in different locations, no problem. You see an attacker in one location, that information is shared amongst your enterprise so that you can protect yourself against that particular device when it shows up in a different location. So everyone with me so far? That's good. So there's a couple of things that need to sit beneath that, okay, in order to support this global database. And the first one is the fingerprinting device. All right? The fingerprinting device enables us to look at the traffic, and when we see a new connection come in, is it in the database? If it's not, no problem. I need to reach out to that device. I'm going to grab a bunch of things from it, about 200 things I'm going to grab off that device. And I'm going to put it in a database and store it away for later. And if you start to be bad, I'll update that database and say, that device with that fingerprint is now bad. And if you continue staying well, then great, everything continues and works normally. It means that we can be incredibly granular as to how we lock people out. We don't have to focus around IP address base, which is the very traditional way. So the Spotlight device, the Juniper web application device, uses web-based access and looks at the traffic and ensures that it's either good or bad via this fingerprinting technique. Web app secure, I just did that one. And it's available in a couple of different ways. The first part is, some people like physical boxes, okay? We're a box company, there's boxes down the back, all right? You guys sell boxes. Lots of organizations don't want to do boxes anymore. They want virtual platforms. So we support that as well. And for us, it's about that platform independence, okay? If you're a box person, we've got them. If you're a virtualized person, we've got that as well. And as you move further down the track and we start linking the virtual boxes together, that's where software-defined networking fits in. How do I start chaining security and that overall application delivery together? When I link all of that together in a very programmatic way, that's software-defined networking. The next device that fits into this suite is the distributed denial of service device. It enables us, again, to look further into the traffic and then determine whether or not, whether that's volumetrically you're not so good, or through heuristics inside the technology, look at that and say, you know what, we're pretty sure that's not so good. We'll mark that as not so good. And during times when there's not enough resource, we'll starve those potentially not so good requests, and we'll wind them down so that we've got space for the good requests. Okay? A very different spin on what you might have seen in the market thus far, which is around just pure volumetric-based attacks and prevention. You know, I've got a link this big. If I get this much traffic, it doesn't fit into this. So how do I prevent against that? I use a device that shrinks this into this and only allows the good traffic to come through. The downside of that is, again, it's very heavily using things like IP addresses. And IP addresses, again, as we talked about, don't represent the person or the device. They could represent lots of people and lots of devices. And the final piece is around how do we enforce this? Juniper have been delivering security gateway services, I said, for well over 10 years. The SRX family, I'm sure some of you are familiar with, is an incredibly high-powered device at blocking attacks. So we make that hardware, we customize the silicon, we can go incredibly fast. We can also deliver that out in very small devices as well, so you can use all of that technology to secure your network. The benefit being is we've got the brains in the platforms like the JWAS platform and the DDoS platform, talking to the enforcement points which have the muscle and the horsepower to do that work. And then we use that to enforce the overall security inside my network. The important part, though, remember back to that cloud picture, is I share that broadly across the enterprise, or if I choose, I can share that at a global level, okay? And I can learn then, you know, if I've got one device and there's 50 million of them out there, I can enjoy the benefits from other people as they protect their websites. And doing so will bring a heightened level of security to the market than we've seen any of our competitors do. Our competitors are focused on IP address blocking, which is so 1990s, all right? We want to focus around that newer stuff. We want to make sure that it's easy to manage, and we want to make sure that there's a place in our partner ecosystem for us to be able to sell that, for you guys to add value services on top of it, and deliver that ultimate customer experience to your customers, and obviously with us as well. And finally, that ties it all back in. I only have one quick slide on SDN. SDN fits together in a way that as we move to that more virtualized world, I need to be able to chain those resources together. And in doing so, I need to be able to program them. And again, everything old is sort of new again. If you think back in the past, we might have called this a automated network management platform. Telcos call it an OSS, BSS. All right? It's a platform for providing orchestration. We take that even further now. So when we provision a resource, I provision that resource, I spin up the virtual machine, I spin up the virtual DDoS platform, I spin up the virtual SRX, I spin up all of these things, chain those services together to allow the application to perform well. And I can also then take this collected data out of global databases that enable me to deliver blocking at a very granular level to these devices that have just been spun up. So it takes a lot of the management side away from it as well. It's a very powerful technology, very different to what's going on with most other people inside the marketplace. And it's one thing that, we've got a very strong team here in Singapore. There's a number of specialists around the region that can help you position this with your customers. It's an extension, as I said, of what we've been doing for many, many years, but it also is an elevation of the security services that are provided to your customers as well. So that's all I had to talk through today. I'll hand it back now, and we'll have some questions and so forth later on if we want to go a little bit further into the technologies, and there's some Juniper people and Westcon people here to help as well. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.